This is evolution simulation game The Sapling, my solo indie game project. It lets you design your own plants and animals, put them in an ecosystem together and see how they evolve. This is the first video in a series of 6 weekly devlogs to show you the next big update I am currently working on. I believe that a game developer who wants to build a good game should spend significant amounts of time watching other people play. Just sitting there, watching over somebody's shoulder and saying nothing. One of the many things playtests like these have taught me is that almost all players quite clearly fall into one of 3 categories, which I'd like to call the dreamers, the artists and the scientists. The dreamers are the kind of people who are into speculative evolution and have this grand vision of an ecosystem they want to build. They usually mostly ignore the scenarios and jump right into the sandbox. The artists, on the other hand, don't care about the simulation at all, but spend hours and hours in the plant and animal editors, making their creatures look exactly as they want it. For them, the editors are a creative tool they want to fully understand and master. Finally, the scientists focus on the simulation. For each change they make to an organism, they immediately check the statistics to see what changed, and they often will not rest until they created the perfect organism for a particular environment. Interestingly, fellow game programmers are often of this type. Playtesting sessions with different player types usually lead to wildly different ideas for improvement. But recently I started noticing that something often mentioned by both artists and scientists is basically the same thing. Features related to animal skin. To start from the scientist perspective, it was kind of weird that for plants there were all of these restrictions on where they could live, like not too dry, not too windy, not too hot, not too cold, but animals could just live anywhere. The easy part to fixing this is of course to add an animal temperature range to the simulation. If they go to a place with temperatures outside their range, they will quickly lose health. Giving an animal fur will lower the temperature range, so it can live in colder areas. Giving an animal scales will allow it to live in warmer areas. Feathers can evolve from scales and will allow the animal to live in colder areas again. What makes this hard, however, is that I of course also want to visualize these skin types. The style I have used for the game is relatively low poly, so the models are not too detailed. So how do you show something as detailed as fur on a low detail model? To answer this question, I studied quite a lot of low poly animal art. Unfortunately, the answer turned out to be not at all. Low poly animals are bold, and the fur is often implied by colors. Okay then, maybe I could do something with the colors. Can I just draw on fur? So far, the visual style of the game has been to not use textures at all. Everything is just one color. To not break with this style too much, I wanted the effect to be really subtle and stylized. In the end, I indeed settled on a highly stylized texture style. For all of the hundreds of textures I've drawn, I've always taken the same 3 steps. Draw an outline, draw a shadow, and draw a highlight on the other side. Next step, how do I actually get this 2D image to show on a 3D object if I have no idea of how this 3D object will look? Mapping a 2D image onto a static 3D object, called UV mapping, is already a complicated process by itself, often done by highly skilled 3D artists. But for my needs, it needs to be done automatically and on the fly, for any animal the player can imagine. After spending way too much time studying all kinds of algorithms to automatically do this, it dawned on me that what I actually needed was much simpler. Internally, the game sees animals as simple boxes, with a front, a back, a top and 2 sides. I can just create a texture by simply stitching together individual square tiles, one for each side of each box, and skipping the places where the animal has body parts. The base tiles are grey but recolored by the shader. Still, this meant I had to automatically map my 3D model to this 2D texture. I started with trying to map this debug texture to the animal, and as you can see, here everything is still quite messy. This is a day later. Here I got most of the debug textures at the right place. Another day later I also got the real texture stitched together. Notice how it nicely skips the legs. All I need now is some randomness instead of repeating the same tile over and over. Now I can visualize skin types. Adding temperature limitations to the animals is officially justified. This opens up possibilities for other temperature related characteristics. In nature, besides fur, a common strategy to stay warm is to get fat. So now, if you make your animals really fat, their temperature ranges will go down as well. A strategy to stay cool, on the other hand, is to have large body parts, often containing thousands of blood vessels that are thin and close to the skin. I have added a heat loss statistic to existing large ears and added new organs specifically for losing a lot of heat. For this organ, originally designed to put on top, I was a bit worried that it would look ridiculous when put on the sides. But I was wrong, it looks incredibly cool. And this way we have arrived into artist territory. Something artists also mention quite often is skin patterns. With all of the UV mapping and tile stitching already in place, the step to skin patterns is actually rather small. Right now I have added thin stripes, thick stripes, small spots, large spots and a darker back. Drawing tiles to build these patterns is more labor intensive than you might think, because there are all kinds of edge cases where a tile needs to change its appearance based on the tiles around it. For example, if I put a body part here, the pattern is interrupted and needs nicely rounded ends. Or when I put one here, I want the stripes to gradually get shorter. The result of all of this is that we finally get to leave behind ecosystems with one bland generic animal, and instead get animals with much more personality, specialized for one particular environment. You can see this clearest with my favorite feature in the game, the random mutations in the sandbox. In the colder areas the animals evolve to be fat and furry, in the hot climates they evolve to be thin and have body parts that help them lose heat. In other words, we see the interaction between temperature and evolution happening right before our eyes. So this way I hope to please both the scientist players, because there is now a whole new dimension of behavior to study and statistics to optimize, and at the same time the artist players, because the editors have been expanded with a whole range of new possibilities. Question remains, what about the dreamers? Let's just say this video is only the first in 6 videos detailing the next big update. If this video made you want to try the game, you can. It is currently available in early access on Steam and itch. See the links below for more information. Keep in mind though that what you just saw in this video will be part of the next big update, which is currently planned for June 15. If you want to follow development, there is a Twitter and a newsletter, and you might also be interested in other videos on this channel, like the one where I run the simulation for 7 days straight, or the trailer for the previous flower update.